I'm going to show you the exact way that I create SOPs in AI knowledge bases using Google Drive and optimizing my data for AI search while helping systemize my business. Now, one of the key things of this is a lot of times when I build SOPs or I have a team member build SOPs, before this process, they would go into some Google Drive and die. No one ever view them again. There was no way to find them. And then I'd find 6 months to a year later, we were rebuilding the same SOP strategy or FAQ. And this wasn't very helpful. And then once AI became very prevalent, the biggest issue was I couldn't find the files to build out my databases and knowledge bases. Let's jump in first and focus on how to structure and organize these documents, because even if your SOPs and FAQs aren't perfectly structured, we need to be able to find them and improve on them. So I actually use Google Drive. When I worked for Eaton Corporation, we use a tool called SAP for this. And the problem was, even there, it was very unstructured, very hard to find things. There was no digital way to easily recall, and you had to have permissions, and it got very complicated. So even at multi-billion-dollar companies, they struggle with this, and part of my job was looking for a new way to implement solutions so that way we could have screens and monitors at each location. And this is kind of my small and medium business solution that helps really implement it just using the tools that you're probably already using. So if you look at here, I do have a free sample down below. You can jump in and get that so you don't have to recreate this. But this is going to walk you through exactly how I organize all of my strategic files for my company. So in this example, we're going through a database for Founder Systems AI, which is the course that I help go deeper into these problems. But I'm going to walk you through exactly what this looks like. So in here on the far left is our indexing process. So we just give it a number. We literally start at 0 and we go through. So I have companies where there's hundreds, if not thousands, of documents equaling a whole bunch of pages. And then I have some that are smaller like this one. And this is really focused on a key few things. Now, the next piece is whether it's active or not. So in here, you'll see that we have active, inactive, or needs to be updated. So an example of active is obviously it's in place, it's being used. And the biggest thing about active means the team's been trained on it. So change management has taken place and the team is actually aware of what they need to do with this information. Now, if we have inactive, that could be maybe the process changed, maybe the software changed, maybe the team changed, or there's just a new version and we decided to kind of keep the record in here. And then needs to be updated. This could just be that it's past. Typically my team's required to update these annually, or at least review and approve them annually. So it could be that they crossed that annual time frame, and so it's now read for attention, and so that I have an individual who owns this area and they audit it. So we're gonna go back to active. Then type. Type really depends on what you're doing on your team and what's most relevant. So for this one, I added a few new types for this specific document. My sample might be slightly different, but basically master templates would be things like, I'll show you, I have an SOP template, which you can also grab down below. And that I call a master template because every department's using it. A lot of people are involved and it's really controlling other documents. Checklists are pretty simple. So a pre-call checklist, an onboarding checklist, things like that. Knowledge base. A lot of times I view knowledge bases as things more like FAQs, and it's a whole bunch of information. Maybe it's a writing style that I want to pull from. So a really cool thing that we can teach later is how to maybe have an AI write as if they were Alex Hormozy or one of the more famous marketers. We take their voice, and that I would call a knowledge base. Daily SOPs is another SOP template that you can grab down below, and that's for my team on how we help onboard them quicker and things like that. So there's a lot of different ways to go through this, and I can show you some examples as we get further. But anyways, you have this option here. And so the idea is to help organize this so you can have recall, and it should make sense to you. If you don't understand why you're doing one of the things, it might not fit your business and you might want to modify these. Now, departments. This becomes really, really powerful. Again, obviously for organization and for giving titles and things like that, but also when we're building out new future AI tools. If I want to build out an AI tool that is all-knowing on sales, all I have to do is filter by the sales and it'll give me all the files I need to grab. Then in here, we grab the title. I try to write them so they're as clear as possible, at least to me, but I'm trying to make them, so AI is going to be able to pull from this in the future, but I try to make them so that my team can view it and find the information they need. Now, owner, again, this is going to be, so this one is an internal project. So this is where you can learn more about founders and systems in AI, creating the Founder Systems AI course. But anyways, this is who owns it. So that's the person that's in charge of auditing it. And then the day that it was last updated. So that way, basically it'll say needs to be updated every year automatically. And you can do that in the background with a little bit of basic code. But that will basically be how we audit these things in that feedback loop. And then I know that Scott needs to check it. And then maybe if Scott leaves the company, we can move that to inactive if it was specific to them, or if it's a process we need to reassign to someone else. It's really easy to have this audited and controlled without spending a lot of money on fancy control systems. So in there, I also link directly to the file. So this is actually just a loop. It's linking back to this specific file. Then the last thing is I basically compile all that information to give me a unique file name. So this will be reference that file, and I have a raw folder link right here. So the raw folder link is where every single file is, and you'll notice they're all numbered, they're all super organized, they're in order based on the name. So it makes it a lot easier to find things than a normal, just like having a shared folder, things like that. It's very, very structured. Again, by department, I can find it, I can link directly to these. So just on an organization sense, this is very, very valuable. I've implemented this process not only in SOPs and FAQs, but also on the financial side for P&Ls and controlling documents and tax returns. It just helps structure it without having to use third-party tools that can be cumbersome. Now, again, the real advantage here is what we're going to show with kind of the next stage is how we can turn this into an AI knowledge base really easily using super simple software. So the next thing in here is going to be really our samples. So I actually have them all in here. So let's see if I can find them. Template, if I could spell correctly. So I mentioned a few different templates that you can get down below for free. So one of them is this master template, but then we also have a time study template. And that's going to be really valuable when you're systemizing your business. But then I mentioned the SOP templates. So here's an example. And the reason why I'm pulling this up now is because it's important to understand that if you're going to share this with your team, if you're going to do change management, or if you're going to use this with AI, there's a few things you really want to structure properly. I'm not a fan of overcomplicating SOPs. I don't think they should take weeks to build. I'm going to give you the shortcut to doing that. But first, I want to talk about what I think needs to be in there. I do think an overview needs to be in there. And this isn't necessarily for humans anymore. It's more for AI. So it can help chunk and understand what this information is. So we have an overview. I think goals are critical on what's going on. So we have goals in there. We have a why or a purpose. And then we have the procedures. So you'll notice that I have a whole bunch of more information. I use this template with AI to actually build it out, because the more information you can give the AI, it becomes smarter. But if you're just going to skim this and make it really short and do it without using AI tools, you're going to want the overview, the why, the goals, and the procedure. So really 4 sections that I think are super critical to make this meaningful to your team. Now, if you want a shortcut, the way I do it the quickest is I take this template, I download it, and I upload it to ChatGPT or your favorite AI tool. And then I make a Loom video of everything I want done. So I record all the steps I'm doing. I talk through everything step. So I'm very auditory, saying what tool I'm using and things like that. And then I just take the transcription and put in ChatGPT. I have it fill out the SOP for me. And then I will actually add the video on top. So my team can reference the video, they can see it visually, but then we have a documentation. And again, the advantage here is it gives them more things to look at. It gives them the more clear steps, because you can prompt this to be very specific. And then with the AI systems that we're going to implement in the future, it's so incredibly powerful. Now, as we're going in here, I have more examples of master SOP. So you'll get this one by subscribing down below. But this is just that sample that we talked about walking through. It's the exact same. And then I did mention the daily SOP. So I think that's really important to just talk about. So daily SOPs, if you're trying to systemize your business, building an SOP for a single task or process is perfectly fine. You usually have an owner and you assign that to someone. So the easiest way to assign that to someone is, yes, you give it to them, but then you build that process into what I call their daily SOP. Example of daily SOP. So I call this the daily SOP, and you do get an example of this as well. And so I structure this kind of the exact same way I said: overview, why, goals, and then each one of these can be linked to a more detailed video or standard operating procedure with clear instructions. So each one of these is really the task that needs to be done every single day by this person and what departments they own. So this example is a sales one. I'm not gonna go into this one in too much depth because you will get the templates. But one of the important things too is you can have additional responsibilities. So if it's not a daily task, but maybe someone in your team is responsible for refunds or responsible for a specific thing that doesn't happen that often, they can put right in here. So this is super powerful. There's more things in here that you can really help make your team more robust and help onboard people faster. But now the last piece of this is what blows my mind is now we have all of this in one clear, organized Google Drive. So what I can do is download some of them, all of them, or I don't have to download any of them, but I can use this to build AI knowledge bases depending on what tool I'm using, whether it's ChatGPT, Claude. I can do it with NA to make a more sophisticated RAG database that can be integrated into any of my automation. So this is what makes AI so powerful. But one of the quickest and easiest ways that I like to do this is NotebookLM. So Notebook. So if you're already using Google tools, this makes it really easy because you don't have to do much here. So let me just jump in, and it is free when you have paid Google accounts. So this isn't going to be a full tutorial on NotebookLM, but I just want to show you how quickly I can pull up a knowledge base when I have this. So again, you have Google Workspace. I'm gonna click here, and then I'm gonna find my SOP folder. So I have a folder of all SOPs. This is for Otter Public Relations, which is one of the PR agencies that I own. But in here, I'll grab specific SOPs. So you can grab, I don't know what the limit is here, but you can see that we have hundreds. So I can grab, just for speed, I'm only gonna grab a few, but I'm gonna insert it. And now I have a NotebookLM, so basically a smart AI knowledge base trained on all my SOPs, so it can answer very specific questions based on my company. But even cooler, they've just implemented new things like audio conversations back and forth, infographics, slide decks. So NotebookLM is becoming more and more powerful, and I think Google is really leading the space when it comes to this. So by implementing your knowledge in Google Drive, you're kind of one step closer to where the potential future is. And worst case, you can always easily export all your documents and implement it into any tool you want. I hope you like content like this. If you really want to learn how to systemize your business, check out Founder Systems AI down below. And again, I do have all those freebies, and make sure to subscribe to learn more about how to systemize your business.